Hey everybody, today I have an interesting model I want to show you guys how we can model. Namely, as you can see over here in my Max viewport, I basically have one plane with an image on top of it. That image is basically, let me show you this one. This is a carving from the atelier of Patrick Damians. Like, this guy, I've been following him on Facebook for quite some time, and he is a artisan woodworker. The things that he can do in wood are simply amazing. So this time around, when I actually saw this crest, this family crest that he made, I basically just wanted to show you guys how you would approach a project like this and how you would go about modeling something like this. I actually had a request a while back about making a video for some carved furniture, but I think this is gonna be much more interesting and much more interesting all around for you guys, and you might pick up a few new tricks and tips on how you would approach a project like this. Alright, so I'm gonna put this on the side, and first things first, whenever you are approaching a project, first thing you want to do is see if you can break it down into smaller parts, because if you're looking at it as a whole, it's going to look very, very complicated. But if you try to break it down, you're actually going to see that we can break this into individual elements. So for example, the shield here in the background, we can make this as an individual object. Then the book itself, it can be one object. Then this flowery decoration and this French sigil. I think it's a French sigil. I might be wrong. It might be English. Those are very similar. Then we have the wreath over here and this scroll over here. So all of these can be used as a separate models, and that's actually how I would approach a project like this. So let's get started, and let's get the elephant out of the room by starting with the most prominent or the biggest piece of them all, or the shield over here. Usually when I model, I try to keep all of my models as simple as possible. So in this case, as I look at this shield, I see that it has a lot of these ridges. But the other thing that's kind of important, and Max is a bit, it's blurring it a bit, but if I take a look at the image, I can see that the edges over here have a bit of a bevel to them. So since we know that we have a bevel here, we can encompass that into our model. So first of all, I'm going to start with a simple line and start it off from the bottom over here. Click once here, go up to the top till about here, bring it down. Close the spline. Yes, close. Just make sure both of these are planar. Or, come on. There we go. All right, so we have these four vertices. I'm going to select them all. Control A, right click, and Bezier corner. I want to get something like this. All right. I'm going to press F8 so I unlock my... Well, actually, I'm going to go Control Z twice. And in here, I'm going to refine it with an additional vertex. So with this vertex, it can stay here and it can help me get the shape closer to what it is. All right. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add one more, because if you take a look at here, it has a bit of a fall off. I want to encompass that in our shape as well. All right, something like this. All right, this is gonna work. So now what I want to do is I want to make this a polygon so I can continue with the modeling portion. So before I do anything else, I want to see how this thing is going to look if I go ahead and just drop one bevel profile on top of it. Not a bevel profile, but a bevel modifier. It's two different modifiers. So disregard that bevel profile, just drop in a simple bevel. Now, the great thing about the bevel, you can actually add one height segment over here. Let's say 10. Nope, actually this is not it. Control Z. The height level here is, let's try with 10. All right, this looks good. And now, like we said, the middle part has a bit of a bevel, this part over here. So the edges, let me just put this to shade it. All right, this part has a bevel to it. So what we can do here is we can tick here where it says level 2. And now I can add, let's say 5 with an outline of minus some value. Like, if you're wondering why I'm using such big values, it's basically because when I'm modeling a model, which I don't know the exact size, I always choose to go with a big scale. So this image here is on like a 2000 centimeters by 1800 centimeters. So this is why I'm using such big values. All right, so now if I take a look at the sides, I'm getting that bevel. There it is over here as well. And it's going across. All right, so we have the bevel, we have that thing. So now I'm gonna drop on an edit poly on top of it. And here I'm simply going to select both of these polygons and I'm going to delete them. Now I'm gonna go ahead, select my border, and I'm gonna make it planar on the X. That way all the vertices on this edge are now planar, which means that now when I want to add my symmetry modifier, I'm not gonna get any quirks from it. So before I add the symmetry modifier, I want to move my pivot to one of the edges over here, right here. So if I pivot only. So now when I drop a symmetry modifier on top of it, we get the entire shield with the actual bevel on the side. Now, this is okay like this, but if I want to change anything else, I can simply go back and now either increase the bevel here, but I should use caution because this is gonna get screwed up. Now when I go edit poly, this is no longer working. So again, I'm gonna get it back and let's see if we can continue like this. Now, when I would approach a project like this, I would usually go the long way, where I would let's just put this aside. I would probably go ahead and subdivide the all of these lines with an additional edge, and then give it some depth. So that way, I have some polygons that are actually etched into, or they're protruding outwards from the actual surface. Now, in this case, I want to go ahead and use a different technique, and that's simply, I'm going to use this mesh or this object, and let me just make it transparent with the Alt X. Here, I want to go ahead and instead of making geometry come away from it, I'm gonna make some helpers or some lines that I'm gonna use as a geometry to take away from the mesh. So I'm gonna make some indentions. So I'm gonna click here, make one line to the side and give it some thickness. So make it enable and render in viewport, and in the thickness for the radial, give it some thickness so it actually looks about right. All right. Awesome. I'm going to move it just a tiny bit like this. So now if you take a look at this line is exactly in the bevel part. There we go, something like this. All right, now I need to move this line downwards and make a few more copies. So once, let's turn in 35. Actually, I don't know how many copies I'm gonna need. Okay. I guess that was a good number. All right, so now what I want to do is take one of these lines and I'm gonna drop an edit poly on top of it. And now I'm gonna go ahead and click on the attach list. In the attach list, I'm going to select all of these. Well, actually not all of them, because I don't know what's the name. Line 001. I don't want to use that one. So I want to attach all except line 001. So all attach, and there we go. Now all of these are just one big object. So with my shield, or let's call it shield. With my shield selected, I'm going to go ahead in the create panel. Well, actually before I do that, just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna save, and now I'm gonna put on an extra symmetry modifier. So another symmetry modifier. This time around though, I'm gonna put it on the z-axis. Flip it. All right, move it backwards. Flip again. Okay. Awesome. Exactly what I needed. So now I have that bevel on the back side as well. This is not going to be visible, but it's a good thing to have it there. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the create. In the geometry, I'm going to choose compound objects and choose Boolean. Or I can just use either Boolean or pro Boolean, doesn't really matter. I'm going to click Boolean, and now I'm going to pick operand B. Just make sure you have subtraction A minus B selected and click on the lines. This should give us that look, and there it is. All of those lines have been extracted from our shield, and we're getting that nice looking effect. Now the thing here is that our geometry is going to look rather crappy, but seeing as how we're not going to be deforming this to anything, we're just going to put an actual texture on top of it. It's really not big of any problem, and it's not going to be an issue. So we can continue working like this. So with the shield out of the way, let's right click and hide it. So hide selection. So the second thing I would do here is make the book with the two pieces on top of it. Now for the book one, this is going to be an interesting way to approach something like this, because the actual book is made out of two elements. It has the book cover and it has the actual book pages. So again, I'm going to start with a line, enabling viewport, click till about here, and then get it downwards until we get something like this. All right, so now again I'm gonna make it visible in the viewport and in the renderer. This time around, I'm going to use a rectangular profile. So the length is not so important. All right. I'm going to select all of my vertices, right click, and make them Bezier corners. So this is going to help me get this shape. Whoops. What? All right. That was a misclick. F8 to unlock it until we get something like this. All right, now let's see about getting that geometry. Now I just want to make sure that I don't get any overlaps like this. So I'm gonna try and get it raised up a bit, just so we get out of a jam like that. Well, actually no. All right, let's see if we can. All right. This should work. Okay. I'm going to rotate this for 90 degrees, which in turn is going to allow me to set it where I need it, here. And now with the length modifier here, or the length parameters, I can make it so the actual book is as tall as I need it. But just to make it easier to myself, I'm going to make it edit poly and simply drag these till about here somewhere. Okay. All right, awesome. Again, I'm gonna put it down like this. All right, so now what I wanted to do is I want to make this fold down like this. So basically like an open book. Let me just use another line so I know exactly. Yeah, I actually got it right. All right, so with this, I'm going to take my pivot and put it here. Basically because this thing is symmetrical. So now when I add a symmetry modifier to it, just flip it like this, I get the other side of the book. And there it is. Awesome. I think I might be able to get away with a thicker book, but really doesn't matter. Just so I can get the thickness on the top, I'm going to select both of these polygons and just manually just move them upwards just a tiny bit. So I get a bit more leniency so I can work better. All right. So with this, we basically got the cover of the book. So now what we have to do is make these pages. Again, I'm going to use a line. So I'm just going to go ahead and click once here, twice, 3 times, 4, 5. All right, now I'm going to turn off this, select them all, make it a Bezier corner. There we go. Something like this should work. Awesome. Okay. Again, enabling viewport and renderer. Now I just want to make it thicker so it coincides with what the thickness of the book is. All right, move it upwards just a bit more. So something like this, it should work, I guess. Yes, it should. All right, drop an edit poly on top of it. With the help of our move tool, we're going to select all the vertices, and every time we use a line and add an edit poly, we get one of the edges to have this connecting edge. So I'm just going to select it, control backspace to remove it, and here what I want to do here is I'm going to select just this polygon, rotate it like this, and gently put it on the side, something like this. The reason for this is because I want to have this folding book look here, and when I use my symmetry modifier, I want to have it like this. So what I'm going to do here is now I'm going to move my pivot to the side like this, and now when I put a symmetry modifier on top of it with a flip, let's see, is it in the middle? Yes, it is. It's smack in the middle. This can work like this. Okay. Now, since I have the symmetry on top of my edit poly, whatever I do here is going to be changed on this side as well. Now, in all honesty, I really shouldn't have made it so heavy on the geometry, so I'm gonna do myself a favor. I'm gonna select a few of these edges here that I'm probably not gonna need it. Control backspace and delete them all. So you got to remember one thing when you're working with a model and you have a lot of geometry. If the lines or the geometry is not giving to the shape of the model, it's taking away from the model. Remember that. Always try to keep your models as simple as possible. All right, we're gonna get that extra bit of geometry from the turbo smooth. So let's try and just get this into a shape, follow it more like this. All right, awesome. All right, so now what I want to do here is add these ridges that are supposed to define where the pages are. So since this was made in wood, we're not gonna have a very high amount of pages, but still. I'm going to select one of these edges. I'm going to click ring. So it's going to select the entire ring, and then connect and add in, I don't know, like 10 pages. Yeah, this should work. Now with this selection, simply click on the extrude, give it some value. A negative value, so it's going inside. With the width control, you can control how exactly wide this entrance is going to be here, and there we go. Now, since I want to use a turbo smooth, I want to add a few more edges. So with the help of my Swift loop, I'm going to go here and click here and click here. Those two are going to keep this edge sharp, and whoops, this one is going to hold this edge, and this one here is going to hold this edge. So with these edges, now on top of the symmetry, I'm going to put in turbo smooth, and I'm getting this exact look here. So with this, basically we have our book. So if I rotate this 90 degrees and put it here, we have our book. Now if you take a look at the actual book on the shield, it's kind of skewed upwards and it's not looking flat like this, but we're gonna change this later on once we have the bit of geometry on top of it with this French cross and this flower ornament. So once you have those done, we're going to put it on the book, and I'm going to show you guys how you can get this effect.